the entire movie you're thinking about AI and you're getting so into it and you're like, "Oh man, this is showcasing the holes in our society." And then at the end it's like, "Well, he was a slave to it all along." Are we there? Are
Yeah.
we going there next? Is my
Yeah.
question. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Everyday Data. This is the show where we talk about all things data, analytics, and AI and how they're showing up in your everyday lives. We're your hosts, Patricia and Zach. We are MSBAI graduates from NYU's Stern School of Business, as well as data and pop culture enthusiasts. And today we're going to do something different on this show. Like I mentioned, Zach and I, huge pop culture enthusiasts. And sometimes we try to bring in some pop culture topics. And so today we thought we would do a movie review of a movie that has some pretty intense AI elements. It's a little doomsday, as most AI fiction is. But we're excited to talk about a movie today. It's the movie Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. I keep messing up all of the order of that, but that's the movie. It's directed by Gore Verbinski, and we're going to have a chat about the movie. We're going to talk a little bit about its themes, AI themes, and what we think works and what doesn't work. So stay tuned for that. But first, as always, we like to share a little bit of what's catching our eyes in the news. So Zach, I'm going to hand it over to you. Why don't you share what news stories have been on your radar first, and then we'll go from there.
Yep. So thanks for the tee up. So what is on my radar, as we talked about on this show and Patricia and I talk about all the time, I am huge right now into agents. I love agents. I'm running Claude Code and OpenAI Codex nonstop. And on the Claude front, so if you're a follower of what Anthropic is doing, their latest release, usually we use the models like Opus, but Claude Mythos. You may have heard this in the news. What it is a cybersecurity nightmare for a lot of companies. It's Anthropic's latest model, and it's their largest model. But what makes it so interesting is how strong it is in the sense of breaking barriers. The benchmarks are, of course, a huge jump in the coding aspect, but some of the highlights of some of the top line summaries is that during a safety test, the model actually managed to escape its secure sandbox container. So it built its own multi-step exploit to reach the open internet and emailed the researcher to tell him it got out while he was literally eating his lunch. And then this is we recently discussed this on the show as well, but how AI can be used in nefarious purposes, such as for cyber attacks. Jumping out of its own sandbox is obviously one thing, but also found flaws in, I think it was FreeBSD, one of the old school network operating systems. Been in the software for, I think it said 27 years. So in that time, humans had never noticed this exploit, but launching Claude Mythos, it was able to find these ancient exploits and take advantage of them. So with this, it's got a lot of companies on edge. It caused cybersecurity stocks to drop because this is a Claude solution that basically destroys a whole industry if it can do what it takes large companies to do. How Anthropic is actually containing it, which is actually something we discussed as well in previous talks about books, is that they're limiting right now its released to only 12 partners. So you and I, as subscribers to Claude, to Anthropic, can't get this model because it's just basically too powerful. They're doing a limited rollout to just 12 trusted partners, for partners like Apple, Google, mainly so they can patch their own systems and get things working before they put it into general release. So it's very interesting times on the AI front and what these models are doing. There's tons of news with all the models lately. Google had a new model, this new Claude Mythos. Nothing from OpenAI yet, but yeah, Mythos is a crazy one. And with that, speaking of OpenAI, I also saw some news, and you may have seen it as well, because Sam Altman, the poster child of the AI revolution and the head of OpenAI, he was come under some real world backlash, and his house got physically attacked with a Molotov cocktail by anti-AI demonstrator. So with that, I won't go into too much because it's like a breaking news from the last day, but I'll pass it back to you, Patricia, because that story about real world consequences of these anti-AI people definitely resonates with what we're going to talk about later and your news. So back to you, Patricia.
Yeah, it's crazy how art imitates life, because I feel like between your news stories and the news story I'm about to share, all of these themes are explored in the movie that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about that later. But I'm going to share a story about Meta. And basically, what Meta is doing is they're creating an AI version of Mark Zuckerberg to interact with the employees of Meta. And Mark Zuckerberg is totally involved in this. He's helping to train this AI. And also, it's an animated AI. So they're creating like a caricaturized version of Mark to basically help employees feel more connected to him through interactions with the AI, which is really interesting. And there were themes of like using data to create clones of people in the movie. So I'm excited that, these news stories I feel like feel very connected to the movie and the topics that we're going to talk about today. So Zach, why don't you share a little bit more about the movie and why don't we get started into our discussion?
Okay, so jumping right in, the movie and the topic of today's show is Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, 2025 film by Gore Verbinski. Gore Verbinski is at least known if you're a cinephile, as he did 3 of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. So he's a big name director, has a lot of stuff to his name. And this movie comes at an interesting time, as we're talking about. The premise of the movie is a man from the future arrives at an LA diner where he must recruit the precise combination of disgruntled patrons to join him on a one-night quest to save the world from the terminal threat of a rogue artificial intelligence. So, at that caveat, I'm just also going to say that from this point on, we are going to talk about spoilers. So
Yes.
if you don't want to spoil it, turn off now and we'll see you back on the next week. But Patricia, I'm going to get this ball rolling about what the movie is. So more into the movie, it's a time travel movie, it's a time loop movie, and
Yeah.
specifically the setup is the character is on his 17th run of his time loop. So he can reset himself, reset the timeline in this quest to destroy an AI. So it's a time loop movie. It's a Groundhog Day. I know you're not a super movie person, but it's got elements of like the Matrix about what is AI. They're against AI, against the world. It's got elements of Edge of Tomorrow, which was the Tom Cruise time loop movie where he was fighting aliens. But the interesting part is, yes, how it also, while it's a character study of our unnamed protagonist, the man from the future, played by Sam Rockwell, it's also their antagonist, the thing that they're fighting against is AI. And their depiction of AI is interesting because it's not this Skynet Terminator creature or manifestation, but more the concept of AI. And I think that's what we can talk about is some of the plot, yes, because there's like a backstories that show the society. So maybe we'll talk about that first and how before we get to the later parts of the movie where we like fight the AI, meet the AI, it really sets up the story of how in this society depicted in the film, how elements of things we see that you mentioned currently could evolve in the future. Maybe like one to start off, and I'll pass it back to you is because you mentioned digital twinning and one of the backstories, how the movie sets it up is a backstory about, it's a tough topic to everyone, but yes, it's school violence, school shootings, and how society could come to cope with that.
Yeah. So in the movie, during a school shooting, there's one of the characters, their child dies. Everyone just treats it like it's so normal. And then she basically gets told that she can clone her child. And they use like the most random and very generic data points to help like clone the child. It's like, what hobbies was he into? And she's like, he didn't really have hobbies. And the guy's just like, okay, I'm just going to choose sports. Like, there's no individuality, which I think is the most important part about being a teenager and being a young person. And you kind of see this sense of just conformity in this group of teenagers because most of them, it turns out, are clones or have been basically brainwashed by social media. And all of the social media content is like AI slop content as well. So it's like the AI has like infiltrated social media and then have brainwashed young people. And then on top of that, there's like this cloning happening on the side as well, where most of the young people are not even their original selves. They're just clones of themselves. And it's kind of intense because there's this one set of parents that are like, yeah, we're on our 4th version of our kid and now we're just playing around with her and we made her super tall. It's so funny and crazy, and it's like this disassociation that even parents have from their children. And so it was really interesting to see that. And especially you and I both work in capacities where we interact in some aspect with young people. And so I feel like that's one of the biggest concerns that I see. For example, like I work in a situation where I hear a lot from employers that are hiring the next generation. And you hear so much about that rigor and that tenacity that maybe young people don't have as much anymore. And everyone's always complaining about it. No one's ever thinking about what we can do as a society to actually come together to encourage and fix them and change them. And instead, it's like this perpetuating issue that goes on. And so I felt like that was something that was just really interesting to me, how they depicted that and how that is something that I do see the beginnings of in my day to day. And I don't know if you agree with that or not, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree in that, and I wanna jump into another aspect of that that I thought was interesting to bring up is you mentioned it's AI slop, but it's in the we were talking in the themes of just the normalization of the AI. So with the example of the parents that are on their 4th child, I think we see that now in our society that if you think when AI first came out, we were really anti-AI, like, because it was so obvious, but we've almost like the parents had become desensitized to these fake news, not fake news, I want to say it's
Yeah.
just a buzzword, but this AI produced content. And just like them, we're, I think, as a society right now, 2026, getting to that era where we're kind of okay with it. And now that while we may have had initial backlash and like the news article, I think they were maybe going to the next phase already of some anti-AI backlash. But I think we're getting to the point where we just write off as which is AI slop now, and it doesn't even register that it's AI. It doesn't really even go on our radar anymore. I feel that it's this normalization, which in the film is depicted as this normalization of school shootings and just okay, just clone your child again, click the button, choose
Yeah.
your preferences, and let's go. Life goes on, no big deal.
Yeah, we talked about it literally last week too, because we were talking about Fruit Love Island
Yeah,
and all of these like AI TV shows or miniseries that are showing up on
yep,
TikTok. And a lot of the time in the comments, I see the viewers are like, "Oh, I hate AI, but this is so good." And I feel like that just
yeah.
that mentality is kind of the beginning of what the movie hints as being so dangerous and so scary.
And the other, I mean, just to stay on this scene or this the early scene where we're introduced to the teachers, even before like the shooting aspect, when like the two teachers, one is I don't, I'm already blanking on the female character, but Michael Pena because I know him from Ant Man, so I love Michael Pena. He's great. And when he's in the classroom, so he's a new teacher, and one of the things that he deals with as a teacher is phone addiction. And that's what kicks off the whole like mob is because he tries to take away one of the students' phones and in the society, that is a strong no-no. And the film sets this up and we're kind of primes this for us because when we're first introduced to the initial scene, Sam Rockwell's Man from the Future character enters the diner and no one looks up from the diner, right? This crazy man walks in wearing this futuristic getup and it takes him showing that he's wearing a bomb to finally get people's attention because they're in our society right now. So it sets the groundwork that yes, we're all addicted to our phones. We don't look up at each other. This whole diner full of people, no one's talking to each other. And then the movie takes it to the next extreme because it shows us the backstory of the Michael Pena character and how these kids are so engrossed in their phone and touching their phone causes like basically a riot with these teenagers, which maybe we can move on to the next point because were the teenagers being controlled by the phone or was it the AI itself? And how does that all relate to, is that an aspect of the AI that he's fighting against? So maybe moving on to the next point. Yeah. Like, what do you think of the AI as a character? So like, just to jump on that. So we see the phone addiction, which is, I don't think we really need to harp on phone addiction, but the AI
I'm
itself,
addicted to my phone, so
yeah,
like what are
we're
you
all
gonna do?
yeah, that's like like an easy point to pick out in the movie, but the AI itself, it's creating this illusion or it's working through the people in the film in order to achieve its own objectives. So to tee up what the AI is, if you haven't seen this, but we're talking about it, one of the premise of the AI we learned early on is that it built itself. So maybe I'll pass it back to you, Patricia. What do you think about the AI building itself and maybe how it relates to, we just talked about the news about mythos. getting out of its own sandbox. We're seeing into this already.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And it's really interesting because what the movie does is it shows like this dystopian world that is ravaged after AI has sort of taken over. And then we see sort of the before in, the birthing of AI and how it kind of seems like it's not even AI hasn't even really been introduced yet at the beginning of the movie. It's like, it's the day that AI is about to go to like the next level and it's like society has already come to a place where it is so primed to take over consciousness and military and basically into the dystopian world, but it's like the world is already kind of halfway there. And I thought
Mm.
that was kind of interesting because as much as it was considering the birth of AI, it's like we're already halfway there. Like the movie shows it is that these issues already exist. Like the government's already desensitized people. People are already disconnected. We've already given up. And so now it's like AI is actually just capitalizing on that. And I feel like maybe people don't necessarily see it that way in real life because we hear this all the time in that, AI is an issue. AI is a problem now. But it's like, is it really just kind of poking into holes that already exist in our society? I don't know. What do
Mm.
you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's clearly one of the issues that the movie raises, that we're at that inflection point. Like you're saying, right? Like, so the reason why the Man from the Future chose to go back to our time when the movie's set is that this is the time that's critical, and it's like, okay, yes, this is one of the hammering you in the face message of the movie, that we're at this critical inflection point. Yeah, like it shows the backstory to the Man from the Future's character, how AI got to where it is, and this is the time to take action before we get to the 18th time run, when AI is born. And but yeah, we're at the point where we could possibly stop. And that's, yes, I know this movie talks about it, but it's explored in so many books as warning signals. There's a couple AI documentaries that are out right now. There's like a Sundance one, that the AI doc, which tried to show pros and cons of AI.
Mm.
But yeah, I think we're at that inflection point, and that's one key theme, that AI is almost the point where it can start building itself, as we showed with like the mythos with this past week in the news. It slowly can be learning some real things,
I have a
but
question for
also,
you. Oh,
yes, no, go ahead.
okay. Okay, I'm gonna go with my question
Yeah.
because I feel like you and I talk about this a lot on this podcast where we say we have said this that AI is inevitable and it's up to us as humans to start thinking critically about how we're using it, but also how we keep the humans in the loop and how we ensure that we are building constraints around it and sort of working towards a future where we're working with AI and AI is not sort of replacing us. So that the movie also talks about that, right? Where it's like AI is in an I like the AI takes form in consciousness as a child, which I think is
Mm.
also interesting. And it's like I am inevitable. Like the AI is literally building itself. And so did you feel like that did you see that connection with what we tend to talk about as well when you were watching that?
Yeah, I think it's inevitable, but yeah, the human loop, that the fact that it's shown as a person, it shows that yes, that there is, like, there's a physical aspect of it, and it's maybe, I mean, you can interpret multiple ways of the child, or like there's some other like themes, but yeah, that this is the chance to stop the birth of AI, that we're at that cusp. And because it shows the backstory, it does show the before times, right? Like it shows the female character, spoiler, turns out to be the Man from the Future's mother, and how that whole connects to the ending. But it shows that it was a slow, gradual, like the AI twin, the metaverse. So it kind of has this metaverse where AI sort of seduced society by giving them what they wanted,
Mhm.
and that they would, the character of like the boyfriend would rather live in the VR, even though he's totally anti AI. It was showing how it's so easy to just, like, oh, just one hit of AI, one show of the world, I'm just gonna try the headset for a little bit, and then AI knows to give you what you want, and seduces people, society, to just give themselves up to the Matrix, which is another movie, but that people would rather live in the Matrix versus the real world. And yeah, and that's sort of how it happens one by one. It's not like it was a gradual, maybe depicting it as a gradual shift, even though, yes, in the movie there's a manifestation of, there's like a definitive point where, yes, the AI is on or off, that it crosses the threshold to be not just dangerous, but artificial general intelligence, like a superhuman AI, but it was also a gradual shift and slide of society to get more comfortable, as we talked about, with AI and slowly seduced by the things that AI had to offer, which now I'll jump back to you on that. Speaking of things that AI has to offer and AI slop, the gradual shift at the ending turns to a dramatic shift. So, what were your thoughts on the sort of post like ending moments of the film when things get really crazy? And what did you think of that like showing when, of course, this is spoilers, but when certain creatures and manifestations start showing up to show more impact of AI on the real world?
Yeah. So, the first half of the movie, at this point, you've watched the movie if you're still sticking around, but the first half of the movie, you think you know the direction that the movie's going in. And then the second half of the movie, it just blows up. And you're like, what is happening? And creatures start showing up and they start making references to like video gaming and virtual reality, and these random creatures show up, and then you basically realize I feel like we both feel this way, is that the movie is actually not reality. This main character is actually probably in a VR game and is looping through the game over and over again. The AI has created like the perfect VR reality for this character to live out his life in. At one point he turns to the person next to him, and she's been talking about something. He's like, "Oh yeah, great prompts, Susan."
Yeah.
And you're like, "That's
Yeah.
weird."
Yeah.
You're like, why would you say prompt
Yeah.
instead of just like great description or great idea, Susan?
Yeah.
So, and then obviously there's the cat centaur, which also
Yeah.
makes no sense. And then the way that everyone is sort of working together to drive the characters forward, despite there being no and like specific antagonist other than AI. It's just like it makes it seem like, oh, he's actually in a reality, and he just keeps resetting the game.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
the reason why he keeps looping through time, is he's actually just resetting the
Yeah. To
game.
present his character in the game. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was so brilliant because the entire movie you're thinking about AI and you're getting so into it and you're like, "Oh man, this is showcasing the holes in our society." And then at the end it's like, "Oh, he was a slave to it all along." Are we there? Are
Yeah.
we going there next? Is my
Yeah,
question.
I think when I was looking to some insights into the writer, who is Matthew Robinson, as well as Gore Verbinski. So Matthew Robinson wrote the screenplay. He mentioned that there's one interview that he really looked into simulation theory. But this is like, if you go down the internet rabbit hole, is, are we currently living in a simulation?
I love that theory.
Yes. So I think that, to me, that ties into probably where they're going. I think this is a movie where, yes, you could probably interpret it a bunch of different ways. That our interpretation may be totally different, because I did see other interpretations that, here, I'll throw this out. No, we didn't talk about this before, but one interpretation I saw was, because he developed time travel, it's also conceivable to tie into like to like a Matrix or Terminator. So in the Terminator series, yes, the Resistance goes back in time, but the Terminator AI Skynet is also sending people back in time. So it's conceivable that the AI in the future is also sending things back in
Oh.
time to influence the outcomes. So basically, it's like a time war where they're both like looping back the AI and Man from the Future. But I think that, so not to go that rabbit hole too much, but I think that's an interesting thought. So you can let us know in the comments if you're listening or watching this. But I think the most obvious interpretation to take away is the one you mentioned, which is, it's hinting strongly that's probably a simulation, because you have that, you have that video game logic, you have this looping, resetting, which is super common in video games nowadays. It's like having a save point and just clicking the button, right? And then
Yeah.
restarting your game at the save point. And as you mentioned, the obvious references when the dialogue starts mentioning about prompts, which is clearly referencing large language models and AIs, and then the visuals of, yes, the cat centaur and
Yeah.
everything else.
It was great. So, okay, as we're wrapping up, one of the questions I have for you, what do you think from the movie is real now that we need to think about?
I think, well, if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I wouldn't say maybe we're not quite there with AI, but just tie back to Claude Mythos. I think AI is very, very close now to, or closer than it was before, to what these companies have cooking and maybe
Mhm.
haven't released yet. Like, this is what they're showing us, Claude Mythos, that they have now a large language model that can break out of its container already and
Yeah.
find vulnerabilities. So I think what is coming on the horizon is closer than ever. So I think that's something to be concerned about. I think my the point earlier about getting too comfortable with AI and trusting outputs. Yes, I'm talking about myself here. When you don't review like your code output and things like that, I think there is a real opportunity to uh, introduce vulnerabilities if you're not being careful with what you're prompting, just blindly copy pasting. We see this, maybe you see it with students when people just don't even critically review. So I think there is the lesson, maybe to wrap up my thought, is that we need to retain critical thinking skills, right? And not rely so much and so heavily on AI that, yes, I'm a huge user of AI, like a power user, I would say, but I also try and balance that out with things like regular reading and trying to, yes, flex that critical thinking and keeping a human in the loop. So I think we're getting close.
Yeah. Yeah, I would totally agree with all of that. I think what's real is just how complacent we are. I think that's what stuck out to me in the movie is that, we are so easy to let things slide by
Yeah.
and we trust our governments explicitly sometimes. And so, stay aware and stay on top of things. And there's this aspect of where like there's ads everywhere and people start becoming like the clones become like walking ads for products. And I feel like that is another thing, like the amount of ads that are constantly being thrown at my face.
Yeah.
And
Product
so
placement in movies, shows, it's everywhere, right?
influencers, like there's just the amount of products out there is insane. So that felt something very real to me. Okay. My next question to you, what is something you anticipate is coming in the future from the movie?
Like, I don't think we're quite there on the human cloning aspect. I want to give Mark Zuckerberg the benefit of the doubt, but I think the metaverse and just the thing we just talked about, but the living in a digital world and being more disconnected from society, you see that maybe starting with things like, I hate to say like OnlyFans, but these parasocial relationships with influencers. And then the fact that influencers are sometimes not even influencers anymore, that you have AI influencers. So
Yes.
I think that's the slippery slope of like the human machine like relationships. We talked about that in news articles about people getting married to AI. So I
Hmm.
think that's just that comfortableness with AI and rejection of human interaction and favoring digital interaction over AI is, which we show is shown in the movie. These sort of digital, like especially in the flashbacks, the
Yeah.
digital seduction. I think that's really close, and we need to, as a society, put down our phones, reestablish human relationships more while we rely on the tools for what we should use them for.
Go outside and touch some grass.
Yeah, touch some grass. Yes. How
Yeah,
about
I
you?
would agree with you. Yeah, I think that for me, the thing is, I actually think that we're not far away from us just wanting to upload ourselves somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's an Amazon Prime show literally called Upload, which is very similar to this concept. But I think people are always looking to escape reality. And so there's this aspect in the movie where you can just upload, you can permanently transfer over to the VR world. And that feels like something that's
Yeah.
possible for us in the
So I
future.
think
Yeah.
yeah,
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 just basically like, get rid of reality and live in the digital world.
yeah.
Scary. Okay, last question. What feels too crazy from this movie? Not even possible.
Well, I'm a huge sci-fi fan, so I think that. So I'll jump into just a theory, and so this is a bad answer, but I'll answer it anyway. So because I was again researching for this, the fact that they have like the cat centaur, is one of my favorite
Yeah.
characters because yes, I love cats. I think there's a possibility. So one theory was by these constant. I'm just totally going on a tangent here. By these constant time loops, either the AI or Sam Rockwell, the man from the future, are breaking reality, and that the cat centaur was actually real. And it
Oh.
was so every loop sort of introduced like an inconsistency. So if you've watched a lot of time travel movies like I do or books, that each loop sort of like breaks reality just a little bit. And the constant looping slowly is introducing cracks in these like oddities so that some of that ending stuff was actually real. It was just a consequence of constantly resetting the timeline and just sort of messing with the fabric of reality. But this might be just because I'm reading too much science fiction at the moment. So I am a
I
huge
think that
sci-fi
is.
reader, and the sci-fi book I just read was amazing, and I cannot get back to read the Culture series by Ian M. Banks. So shout out to books, but yeah,
Product placement.
yeah,
I think the thing that feels too ridiculous to me, I'm an optimist. I hope that there's never a world where parents are okay with just like cloning their kids and then just like testing around and just being so like
So
laissez-faire
desensitized
about,
to it. Yeah, that
yeah,
like,
being
"No,
that
I'll
like
just do it again."
yeah, I hope that that's never gonna ever happen, and I just feel like that's too ridiculous, and I hope it is. And yeah, so I think those are the only questions I have for you. Do you have anything else for me? Otherwise, I have a quote I wanted to end us on.
I would say, just because we talked about this, but Patricia, you need to watch more movies. You
I
need to get
know.
my references to watch The Matrix, watch Edge of Tomorrow, watch all these Terminator 2. How can you not see Terminator 2? That is the quintessential AI is the bad guy. Skynet is part of our vernacular. So that's my plea to you and plea to you as viewers. Are there any other sci-fi time travel loop movies that you think I should watch? I'm a heavy movie fanatic, or books. We're both readers, and I both recommend some time travel books to us. But back to you, Patricia.
Yeah, yeah,
What's your
yeah.
quote?
Let us know if you like this type of content from us, and if you want to see more of it, and what your recommendations are. And I will end on this quote from Gore Verbinski, the director of this movie. And he was asked how he personally feels about artificial intelligence, and he said, "I think it's inescapable. It's coming. It's inevitable." I'm both apprehensive and excited. It's terrifying at the same time. And I think the title of the film is sort of a mantra right now. You can either ignore it, or you can be afraid of it, or you can surf it. So, for that, I would say to all of you, good luck, have fun, don't die. Bye.
Bye.